I think the housing bubble bursting was predictable. I think the impact that it's had on the U.S. economy and the impact it's had globally is just shocking.
I used to be concerned about the over-optimism that I saw in the industry. Now it's the complete opposite. The pessimism has become very, very contagious. When you're taking out a 30-year mortgage, you need to have confidence that you'll have gainful employment next year and the year after that. And right now, the pessimism has gained a lot of traction. Many people have read the 2006 paper, but as early as 2003, 2004, we were starting to see a lot of additional risk building up in the system. You see little bits and pieces of it over time, and it starts to build some critical mass. One of our clients engaged us to come in and look at one of their subprime portfolios. We went through our analysis and presented the risk as we saw it. And it became very clear to that client that we were measuring the risk here and it was being measured elsewhere at a lower level. We were clearly in a different ballpark. So either we were wrong or the industry was misperceiving risk at a fairly sizable scale. We hold an annual conference for our lender clients. And in April 2005, when I delivered the opening presentation, the last slide of that presentation introduced the same concept that the confluence of risky, innovative mortgage products with unsustainable home prices might spell the perfect storm for the industry.
We had just spent the last 2 hours telling them how wonderful the economy was, how wonderful the mortgage production was, and how wonderful the financials were for those clients that were participating in the market at that time. To move forward with a slide that indicated that the party was over was quite controversial.
So I'm up at the podium delivering the presentation, and I get to the last slide that really tees up this issue. But I'm thinking, is the industry going to heed this advice?
And large national mortgage originators, with the expense and operations that they had, were faced with a terrible decision. They could either not do this business, cut expenses and lay off employees, or they could participate in the broader market by lowering their credit underwriting standards and maintain their market share.
One thing that's interesting is at our conference this past year, a couple individuals came up and said, you know, I realized that was in presentations back in 2005 and 2006. You were spot on that.
I don't think we ever had this epiphany about the fact that we were right. The epiphany was that we didn't want to be right.
It's a slowly unfolding train wreck. The delinquencies started to mount. Borrowers started falling behind on their mortgage payments, and it became clear that the music has stopped and we all have to find a chair.
There are two symbols that remind me daily of just how bad things have gotten in the global economy. The first is the largest U.S. insurance company that was a beacon of financial stability almost went bankrupt. It may still go bankrupt. The second symbol is the fact that the Chinese economy will not grow anywhere near the rate it's been growing at and might even reduce in size. That's a constant reminder of how interrelated events in one country are to events in another country.
Usually, if there's a regional stress, you can look toward the other stronger growth areas to help pull the weaker areas out of it. And right now, the weakness is so much more pervasive that it's going to be a lot more challenging to pull ourselves out of this stress. When you're driving around and you're seeing for sale signs all over the neighborhoods, and you just realize behind each and every one of those, there's a story, there's a person, there's a family that can't make ends meet.
there will absolutely be more regulation. We always have to strike this delicate balance between regulation that will protect the economy, that will protect the consumer, that will protect the investor, and not totally stifle all innovation and risk-taking. It's taking those risks that lead to our greatest discovery or that prompts the greatest growth in our economy. And that's a really difficult balance to strike.
It's important to also step back and think strategically about what this crisis means for risk management going forward. And I think that's where the opportunities can be drawn from this crisis.
I think there's a silver lining that comes out of every crisis in that you learn from it, and I think you come out of it actually being better.
The upside is when we come out of this, we're going to have organizations that are more attuned to the risks that they're taking on. We're going to have strong companies that are able to build the risk management culture and have weathered the storm and are in a stronger position to emerge on the other side.
I think one thing that will certainly come out of the subprime crisis and its impact on the global economy is coordinated regulation among financial entities globally to deal with systemic risk. I certainly think there will be a role for actuaries to help put the economy back on track, and our expertise is to measure, evaluate, and understand risk. I think our work will be very effective and helpful for companies moving forward.